I am now honored to introduce our commencement keynote speaker, a familiar face and Gould alum, John Iino. John is the Chief Diversity Officer at the global law firm Reed Smith, where he leads the firm's efforts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, both in the firm itself and in the broader legal community. He has been with Reed Smith for more than 20 years and has held a number of leadership roles in the firm. In 2010, he became the first Asian American to serve on Reed Smith's executive committee and senior management team. He also served as the managing partner of the firm's Los Angeles office. And if you think of what he has done at Reed Smith is impressive, just wait to hear what he's done at USC. Here at USC, John, in the fall of 2020, was named president of the USC Alumni Association Board of Governors, and this June, he will take his place as a member of the USC Board of Trustees. At Gould, he offered his insight and expertise as a member of the law school's Board of Councilors. In 2018, he became the first Asian American appointed as board chair. During his service as board chair, he led efforts to support first-generation students and to bolster the career prospects of all of our students. He also served on the USC Asian Pacific Alumni Networks Association Board of Directors for 7 years. There's still more. John has provided pro bono corporate counsel to Ednovate, the charter management organization that oversees USC's hybrid high school and 5 other charter schools in the Los Angeles and Santa Ana area. He also serves on the national board of the 50/50 Women on Boards, an advocacy and educational organization promoting women on corporate boards, and he serves as the chair of the finance committee of the Jonathan Club here in Los Angeles. Please join me in welcoming our friend, John Iino.
Thank you, Professor Rasmussen, for that great introduction. Thank you, everyone. Honored graduates, family, friends, our faculty, staff, fellow alumni, and the entire Trojan family. It's really such an honor for me to be here today. And welcome, graduates, the class of 2022. What an amazing new chapter in your lives. So, 35 years ago, I was sitting in your exact seats in my graduation from Gould. And our commencement speaker that year was Professor Erwin Chemerinsky, who's a real legend in USC law. And now he's the dean of the Bolt School of Law. But I remember so clearly what Professor Chemerinsky told all of us that day is now that you're armed with a law degree and the legal training, you are charged. You all are charged to change the world. I was so inspired by that. You graduates, every single one of you, literally has the power right now to change the world. But if you're like me, 35 years ago, what I was feeling in my chair right there was like, how the heck am I going to change the world? How am I going to make a difference? Especially for me, because I had accepted a job with a big law firm and was planning a career in corporate law. Similarly, some of you may be from a country where changing the world, culturally, you might find it difficult to believe you actually can do that. So for those of you who are planning a career in public interest or pro bono law, I'd say thank you. And I think we all thank you. And for the rest of us, you may wonder, how can I make a difference and change the world without having to join a public interest, pro bono, social service organization? Well, let me tell you first a little bit about me and my background. I'm what they call a sansei, which is a third-generation Japanese American. And my grandparents immigrated to the US from Japan in the late 1880s. In my grandfather's case, he came to the U.S. to avoid political persecution because he was a journalist and he was writing articles that the government didn't agree with, some of his articles. And during World War II, my parents' generation, some 120,000 Japanese Americans were forced to leave the West Coast by order of the government, sell their businesses, abandon their homes, and for most of them became imprisoned in concentration camps in the most remote and desolate parts of our country. My dad, though, was fortunate enough to not be imprisoned in the concentration camps, and he was able to relocate to Cincinnati, Ohio, because he had a brother-in-law there who was in medical school. And so back then, maybe people don't know this, but if you had a sponsor off the West Coast, somewhere back east, you're allowed to leave the West Coast, and you didn't have to go to the concentration camps. But most people ended up having to go to the concentration camps. But in Ohio, during World War II, my dad achieved his certified public accountant's license, and upon returning to Los Angeles after the war in 1946, he became the first Japanese American CPA here in California. So by the time that I graduated, from USC Law back in 1987, I was very, very fortunate. My dad had, by that point, built a successful CPA practice, and when I graduated, we had a nice house and even had a swimming pool in the back. So, how many folks are taking the bar in a couple months? Just by show of hands. Okay, I don't want to stress you out. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have raised that, right? But anyways, that summer when I took the bar, I was studying for the bar. I remember sitting outside by the swimming pool, literally drinking a beer, finding it kind of hard to soak in the sun and finding it hard to study. I remember my dad opened the door and he came outside and sat by me and he said, "How's it going, son?" And I said, "Well, Dad, it's really tough to try to study here and continue that motivation to study for the bar." And then he told me how he obtained his CPA license, how he studied for the CPA exam. So the house that he was staying back in Cincinnati, there were 4 families, all living under the same roof, all with young children. And so he said that the only time it was quiet enough inside the house to study was when everyone was asleep. So he would go to work, come home, eat dinner with the family, then go to sleep from about 8 o'clock to midnight. And he'd get up at midnight, wake up, study for the CPA exam until sunrise, and then go to work and do that day in and day out over and over again. And from that day, it was not hard for me to study for the bar. So I'm sure many of you can identify with this, right? Either personally, watching your own parents struggle, or because you're inspired by people that came before you. So let me also tell you the story about a man named Sei Fuji. Sei Fuji was born in 1903 in Japan, and he graduated at USC Gould School of Law in 1926. However, because there was a law back then that prohibited citizenship for those who were members of the Mongolian race. Because of this law, he was unable to obtain citizenship, and without citizenship, after graduating Gould, he was unable to acquire a law license. But not to be deterred, for the next 50 years, Sei Fuji worked tirelessly as a champion for immigrant rights, including his work that allowed Japanese Americans to own hospitals, striking down the California Alien Law Act, which was a law that prohibited Asian Americans from owning land in California. And in 1952, that law limiting citizenship for those of Asian descent was held to be unconstitutional, and Sei Fuji was able to become a citizen. In 2017, 63 years after his death, the California Supreme Court decided unanimously to admit him to the bar and grant him a law license posthumously. And that effort was spearheaded by many people, including a USC Gould alum Sid Kanazawa, who I had the great fortune to work with during my time prior to going to law school, and was always a great role model and mentor to me. So I never met Sei Fuji, but I had the privilege of being a friend, a mentee, and looking up to Sid Kanazawa as a role model. So why do I tell you these stories? I guess it's pretty important too. I tell you these stories because what I'm trying to tell you is find your motivation. Find your motivation and you can change the world. What is your motivation? To help others? To advance a cause you believe in? To make a lot of money? Well, let me just suggest, if your sole focus is to make a lot of money, you'll never find satisfaction. I'm sure that your parents and families who are here with you today, in their wisdom, would agree with that. You'll never find purpose, joy, if your sole purpose is to make a lot of money. Changing the world or changing the world around you is what will bring you satisfaction and purpose. So how did my career end up? One thing that I always told myself with Professor Chemerinsky's charge constantly in mind was there will always be opportunities to change the world, whether in your company, your law firm, with your clients, in your communities, with those who you network, and with your families and friends. So I frequently say, if the only people with the attitude of changing the world all went to work for public interest or pro bono work, we would have no one in corporations, we'd have no one in law firms, we'd have no one in government with that same spirit. We need people in all stations of life in society with that attitude. So when I was a young associate, for example, I volunteered to do pro bono work with United Way. But more importantly, I always tried to find ways to reward and make life better for those around me, especially our support staff, secretaries, paralegals, clerks, because they work just as hard as us associates, but were excluded traditionally from the segregated and hierarchical structures of the law firms. And so as young associates, we work really hard in ways to make them feel included, valued, appreciated for their roles. Helping others who may feel excluded, if you help others who may feel excluded, you will change the world. You will change their worlds. And as I became more senior, I became involved with numerous organizations, including social service nonprofits, and used my then expanding network of clients, contacts, and friends to bring attention to those missions. So use your positions, your contacts, your experience to change the world. Be a great mentor. Then when leading Reed Smith's Business and Finance Department, I was intentional to monitor the promotions of women, people of color, LGBT to the partnership. Finally, as a senior partner of our firm, I was asked to lead our DE&I program, and as much time as I spend improving the lives and opportunities of our diverse population, I'm truly focused on trying to help drive progress through the entire legal profession, whether through its programming, podcasts that I have, collaborations, partnerships, webinars, seminars, and the like. So when I graduated from Gould 35 years ago, there was no job called Chief Diversity Officer, and the phrase DE&I wasn't even invented. So my point is, keep your eyes open. Keep your minds open to new opportunities, and you'll always have that opportunity to change the world. So our profession, the legal profession, we have a long way to go, certainly. But if everyone can take this approach of helping others, changing the world, our profession has a solid trajectory and a sense of hope and progress. One person at a time. Now look around us. There are 600, maybe 1,000 people here today. You alone, you have the power to make our change our world, whether it's here in the US or wherever your countries you may go to. I also volunteer with USC, as Bob mentioned, as Professor Rasmussen mentioned. So my advice is stay connected to USC, lifelong and worldwide. For those who are international students, through USC, I've had the opportunity to make meaningful connections and friendships with Trojans all around the world, including Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Mexico, England, India, Singapore, Dubai, just to name a few. So you're Trojans now, and as part of the Trojans family, it'll always give back to you. So over the years, my wife and I, my wife Eva is over here. Eva and I have mentored students and fellow alumni. We funded scholarships and we supported our university. And in the leadership roles I've held here at USC, I've pushed for more diversity in our representation. When I was chair of the Gould board 2 years ago, no, for 2 years, I was really proud that we appointed 7 new members of the board, 5 of whom were women and 4 of whom were people of color. And that goal is to make the Gould board more representative of the students and communities we serve. And similarly, I'm really proud that as the Alumni Association Board of Governors president, this year, for the first time in USC history, the Board of Governors is a majority women and 48% people of color or LGBT. Again, reflecting the students and the communities we serve. So, as you grow your career, as you take on more leadership roles, as your networks will expand, as you gain experience, you will have countless opportunities to make a difference, to change the world. Whatever your passion is, motivation, or purpose is, find it, cultivate it, pursue it, and never stop believing that you can change the world. And that is what will bring you satisfaction. That is what will bring you joy and purpose. So in sum, when I was sitting back in your seats, I had no idea how I was going to change the world. But our work together is just beginning. All 1,000 of us here today. So congratulations, graduates. I really look forward to witnessing the amazing, amazing accomplishments that you will do in the future to change the world. Of course, it truly puts into meaning those 2 words we Trojans so frequently say, fight on.